Hi, I watched Godzilla vs. Kong last night and I really need to talk to you guys about it. Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Kylie. How you doing? Glad to have ya. But yeah, wow, we have a lot to talk about today because yesterday I went back to the theaters for the very first time. Wait, no, scratch that. Okay, my parents had rented out a theater when I went back home so we could watch Nomadland, but this was my first time back to one of my favorite luxury cinemas. Totally different experience. I went to an AMC. If you've been to one, you know they are incredible. Also, not only will I be reviewing Godzilla vs. Kong, but I'm also going to talk about all the trailers that I saw because you guys, there are a couple of projects now that I am so excited for, so I'm going to talk about a couple of the trailers that I saw. I'm not going to give you guys any spoilers though of like what happens in the trailers because I personally do not like to watch trailers. In fact, I try to show up to the movies a little bit later than the show time to try to avoid most of them. But despite my best efforts, my boyfriend and I ended up getting to the theater very punctually, and I happened to see all of the trailers, but I wasn't even mad about it because in the beginning they played this whole thing of like, welcome back to AMC theaters. I was all about it. I was like, yes, welcome me back, honey. I'm home. But backtracking, yes, I will not be spoiling any of the stuff that happens in trailers because I try not to watch trailers. Oh, and before I get into this first trailer, there will be timestamps linked down below if you'd like to just skip ahead to my review because I'll be covering all the trailers that I watched first, and then I'll do my spoiler-free thoughts on Godzilla vs. Kong, and then I'll get into my spoiler-filled thoughts. Okay, let's get started. And the very first one that I saw is one that I had been trying to avoid, but because I was in a very nice theater with crazy surround sound, I couldn't possibly really avoid it, so I decided to actually record my reaction, and that would be the trailer for Spiral. Yes, the new Saw movie that's coming out in May. In an effort to avoid spoilers, I'm just gonna play like probably a couple of seconds of my reaction, so enjoy.
They're targeting cops.
Yeah, dude. Oh my god. I'm so pumped for it now. I avoid trailers particularly for big franchise movies because those are the ones that I really don't want spoiled for me. But that trailer surprisingly didn't really spoil much of anything. It really just kind of introduced us to the vibes. And the vibes were thick. What? The vibes were big, okay? The trailer had big vibes. The reason why I'm so excited is because I just recently finally watched the whole Saw franchise for the very first time. Except I haven't seen Jigsaw yet, but I'm going to soon. But I've seen the first 7 chapters, like the first complete series of Saw, right? And judging by this trailer, I think it's going to be so fucking good. One of the main standouts of the trailer was definitely the music. The score is like remastered to the gods. Maybe it was so amazing because I was in one of the most well-designed surround sound theaters in California. I don't know. But I don't care because the score was just, it was just goosebumps, you know? Leagues more intense than the original movie, I can say that much. It's like how they did Halloween Justice in 2018 where they just kind of totally revamped the score. They did the same thing for Saw/Spiral. But I could also tell immediately how stylized the film was. I could definitely tell how they're trying to remain in tone with the original. The stylization and aesthetics are very apparent, and so I just know that visually at least it's going to be really good. And there are also some serious nods as far as I could see to the original film, like the very first Saw, so I'm excited. I truly think that they're going to do the franchise justice because from what I've heard, like Chris Rock is a really big Saw fan, so hopefully, of course, he would want to do it justice. I'm gonna move on now to the next trailer though, which was for a movie called The Night House, which I had not heard of prior to seeing the trailer. And just fair warning, I would recommend not watching the trailer because I feel like they spoiled a lot in it. But even so, the way that they kind of spoiled part of the story, I was so hooked. I was like, oh damn, that is compelling. Although I will say that it was very much giving me Jordan Peele vibes, and you can definitely tell that at least part of the story was a serious ripoff from one of his films. But it compelled me nonetheless to the point where I think it's one of my most anticipated movies of the year. There is a very solid chance that it's going to be bad, just a really sore attempt to try to rip off Jordan Peele, but we'll find out. The next trailer that I saw was for yet another Fast and Furious movie, this time starring John Cena. There's kind of a huge twist with his character, so I'm not gonna get into it. It seems kind of hilarious. Like, I don't really know anything about that franchise because I'm not into it. I don't care about it. But yeah, the twist is just about as ridiculous as you'd think it would be. And I think it would be really compelling for Fast and Furious fans, so there's that. Do with that information what you will. And then the next trailer that I saw was for yet another movie starring John Cena for some reason, and that was The Suicide Squad, which I am actually excited for. And in my notes, I like whipped out my notes app when I was watching the trailers because I was like, I need to record my thoughts on these because I'm going to talk about them. I wrote The Suicide Squad, amazing, so bad, amazing. I'm definitely going to be buying drinks from the theater when I go see it because it looks just as atrocious as its predecessor, and frankly, I couldn't be happier about that. I mentioned in my video on Wednesday that just for entertainment value, The Suicide Squad is so good. As a movie, as a narrative, with character development and all that stuff, oh, it's garbage, hot garbage. But if you want to play a drinking game, it is a stellar cinematic masterpiece. So that's what I'm gonna do with The Suicide Squad. Although one thing that did not look very promising about it was the fact that they tried to change up Harley Quinn's look, and it's unflattering to say the least. Not to say that I'm not glad that they now are valuing Margot Robbie more than like just using her for her body, but the outfit is ugly, so I don't know what you want me to do about that. But John Cena and Idris Elba being in the movie definitely has my attention, but I'm excited for that. I'm definitely gonna get some drinks in the theater and just have a good time. Then up next, I saw the trailer for Mortal Kombat, which honestly just doesn't really mean anything to me. But the trailer did compel me because visually it looks really interesting. I think the fight scenes are obviously going to be pretty good and crazy. So for that reason alone, I would go see it, but I don't really understand the hype just because I'm not a video gamer. Despite what a lot of my subscribers think, because a lot of you guys keep recommending video games to me, and like, I don't know, do I come off like a gamer? Because I'm awful at video games. Nonetheless, I will watch that movie basically just for the action alone. I don't know if I'll watch it in theaters though, although I feel like that would probably be the best experience. Moving on to the last trailer that I saw, which oh baby, was for Space Jam starring LeBron James. It hooked me, and again, I think that the reason it hooked me so much is because I was in such an amazing theater. Like, they have some crazy over-the-top visuals. The sound design was crazy. It was super awesome. The CGI honestly looked really great. They did a good job transitioning from the real world to the cartoon land, and then, you know, having a bunch of CGI kind of creatures. Visually, it looks like a lot. Like, it's gonna be a lot, but I think I'm gonna be into it because I was really into Godzilla vs. Kong. We'll get into that in a second. So I think that I might be into Space Jam, but I've never seen the original actually, so we'll see. It just looks really transportive and really fun, especially because King James, what? Oh my god. Not me calling him by his sports nickname. I don't even really watch sports. But because LeBron James is the lead, I'm like, okay, I mean, go off, I guess. But I feel like that movie is only really gonna be a good time in the theater. Otherwise, I don't really care about it either. It's one of those movies where you kind of need to be a part of the experience, much like Godzilla vs. Kong, which I'm gonna start getting into right now. The epic next chapter in the cinematic monsterverse pits two of the greatest icons in motion picture history against one another. The fearsome Godzilla and the mighty Kong, with humanity caught in the balance. So this movie was just released, and so far it's received a 76% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I actually think is kind of fair because I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. I love it. I love it so much. Here's the thing though, because I am gonna react to some positive and negative reviews that I found on Letterboxd that are hilarious, but I just wanted to kind of throw in my 2 cents first, so I'm gonna get into all my spoiler-free thoughts right now. Let's just discuss something really quickly though. Sometimes movies can get away with skimping out on what are normally very important aspects of the film, because their intention is not to create a narrative experience, but rather a visual one. Visual food, if you will. Godzilla vs. Kong had some people up in arms because they're like, oh, well, this movie couldn't even be bothered to write good characters or an interesting narrative, and it tried to overcompensate by making the aesthetic look like neon lights just threw up everywhere. I personally do not see the need to get your tidy whities all up in a bunch like that. And I will say, I've harped on movies for very similar reasons because those are all valid reasons for why a movie would not be good, but we're talking about Godzilla vs. Kong. You're not supposed to walk into this movie expecting deep thematic arcs and really well-rounded dynamic characters. You walk into this movie to watch a giant ape fighting a nuclear dinosaur. And that is where all the time and energy went, and I believe rightfully so. Yes, I will say, so much about the movie is stupid and contrived. The characters are really boring, and so you're kind of bored when they're on screen. And of course, some of the contrivances make it impossible to suspend your disbelief. if you're no fun at all. I'm as snobby as they come. I have a degree in film, but I didn't watch this movie to pick it apart. I watched it to sit in a really well-designed theater, just turn my brain off, and be shaken by the surround sound. I do see both sides of the coin, truly I do. Like, I understand why people think it's a bad movie, because in a lot of ways it is. But I managed my expectations before walking into the film, which helped immensely. No part of me expected the narrative to be strong, and it wasn't, and I'm glad. Yes, I was bored when the humans were on screen because most of them were insanely insufferable, but I got to kick back in this big reclining seat. I got to turn my little seat heater on. I was a little bit stoned. I had my little cookie dough snack bites, and I just got to turn my brain off onto entertainment mode, and I got to go ooh and ah at all of the pretty colors and these giant monsters knocking over skyscrapers. It was probably the most epic movie I have ever seen. Although Kingsman, that is another very epic action movie. I think that's still my number one. But even that wasn't as epic as Godzilla vs. Kong. In fact, if I could only describe this movie in one word, it would simply just be epic. If you can, if you're vaccinated and dedicated to wearing your mask in public still, seek out a theater that you know has good sound design, like an IMAX or an AMC. And as for where to sit, a common misconception is that the best place to sit for sound is in like the bottom of the top kind of, what do you call it? The tier? Like, you know how some theaters have two tiers? There's those really awful, like, 2 rows of seats in the very front, and then there's kind of the back tier of all the rest of the seats. So common misconception is that the best place to sit is in, like, the bottom of the top tier, like, kind of just in the front. Like, usually there's, like, a little bar there sometimes. Or people think the best place to sit is in the way back, like the very last row. That's where I used to sit. But I'm gonna let you in on a little industry secret. Come closer. Come closer, come closer. I'm gonna tell you something. The best place to sit is in the direct middle of the theater. You'll have the best sound experience there, I promise. You like that? That little ASMR moment? I've actually been doing a little bit of ASMR on my TikTok. I finally started creating TikToks. Oh, I never thought I'd see the day, but I'm just trying to do some marketing, trying to promote my channel a little bit more. Plus, some people actually like my TikToks, so maybe go check them out. I'm at Haunted Hippie. So anyways, I was just under like the prime conditions to view this movie, so I'm aware that I'm pretty biased because I just had an amazing experience. But the movie can seriously be that good if you see it in a theater. So if you're vaccinated and whatnot, I recommend doing that. I know it's really cool to kick back and you can just watch it at home on HBO Max, but you won't get the full experience. Because I would honestly say that this is a movie that kind of demands the full experience. Otherwise, it might actually be kind of boring. In the theater, it was so intense for me, in fact, that I was going like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, that's how immersive it was, and I wasn't even watching it in 3D. But the moments where either Kong or Godzilla are just staring directly into the camera, like into your soul, it's really intense. You're kind of like, oh shit. And if you've been here a while and you know me, you know that I have a distinct soft spot for creature features, and I think that this movie is a worthy one. So again, highly recommend seeing it in a theater, but if you don't have that option, maybe just watch it to engage in all the pop cultural conversations. And if you don't care about that and engaging with people about the movie, then just skip it, because yeah, it's not that good of a movie. But let me just read off some of my favorite Letterboxd reviews really quickly, because there are some gems. Against my expectations, Wingard is the first American filmmaker to understand the kaiju picture as a piece of graphic rather than narrative art. Period. Factual. 100%. That's the whole point as to why it's kind of annoying when people are like, oh, it was such a terrible movie, the writing was so bad. It's like, we know. We know it's bad, but that's not why we came to see this movie. Like, this person who only gave it a half star, I can only get so pressed over a direct-to-video thing about a giant ape fighting a nuclear dinosaur, but good God, what happened to movies? They became epic is what happened to movies. Oh, this one is just, this person is so well-spoken. I thought this was just a beautiful review. Haha, monsters go bonk bonk. This is one of my favorite reviews, just excellent points were made. Every time humans on screen, I sleep. Me too. But the monster shit is insanely fucking cool. Godzilla King of Monsters, I was pissed because I just wanted big monster fights and couldn't see anything. The fight sucked fat nuts. So eloquent with your words. Here you can see things. Fun times. They don't kiss, but they get really close. For some reason, a lot of people wanted them to kiss. I didn't even consider that, but I agree. Like this one. Again, a great review, so I'm gonna read the whole thing. The biggest, dumbest, loudest, and probably the most fun theater experience of the year so far. Exactly what anyone expected it to be, predictable and safe, but honestly, if you go expecting a genuinely great story and narrative into a movie called Godzilla vs. Kong, then baby, you're just doing it wrong. Adam Wingard delivers on the crazy action action and the psychedelic, colorful visuals, this movie looks amazing and has to be seen on the big screen at all costs. It's extremely stupid and I had the time of my life watching it. They should have kissed though. Yeah, that basically sums up all of my thoughts just right there. This person went on a big ol' rant, so I'm not gonna read the whole thing because it's ridiculous. You don't need to take this movie that seriously. Oh, their name is Cinema Clown though, so that's fitting. There's no denying that the Monsterverse was getting dumber with each subsequent installment, but wow, this crossover entry is a big leap in brainless storytelling. I'm not even gonna read the rest of it, you know? I'm not even gonna put the full screenshot on here because it's so long, but it's like, dude, if you're too miserable to just turn off your brain and enjoy the movie, you don't need to try to ruin it for everybody else. Anyways, that does it for my spoiler-free section, so if you haven't seen the movie, then I would recommend, actually, I don't recommend clicking off because, like I said, I mean, the story doesn't really matter. But if you don't want any spoilers, then obviously click off at this point. Go watch the movie in a theater and then come back to my review. I'm just gonna read off some of the most major plot points and then kind of throw in my 2 cents on them. So we open, it's 5 years after Godzilla defeated King Ghidorah. Is that how you say it? I didn't see that movie. Kong is now monitored by Monarch within a giant dome on Skull Island. And his best friend is a deaf child. Bernie Hayes, who is an employee of Apex Cybernetics and host of a Titan conspiracy theory podcast, extracts data suggesting sinister activities at Pensacola facility. However, Godzilla suddenly attacks the facility. During the rampage, Bernie stumbles on a massive device. And then Madison Russell, who is played by Millie Bobby Brown, she's a fan of Bernie's podcast, enlists her friend Josh to investigate Godzilla's attacks. Let me just tell you right now, those 3 characters are the most insufferable part of this movie. They genuinely have the worst dialogue. For example, anytime something of relevance happens, they have to chime in with some type of one-liner, even when silence would have been more beneficial to the moment.
I think we're moving.
Or sometimes it would be something funny that would happen and then they would kind of like explain the joke. Like, stop explaining the joke. Especially because some of the dialogue was just the worst, the most cliched jokes my ears had the misfortune of hearing. Like, stop explaining your jokes or just stop explaining what's going on, period. The dialogue is just not good enough by any means to compete with the visuals, and they should have just known that and not used as much dialogue. It would have been a much nicer contrast if when there weren't giant monsters fighting and being very loud on screen that we got some moments of silence. Just some moments where a character didn't have to be like, ooh, I don't like this, you guys. But unfortunately, those insufferable characters are the vessel with which we learn what's going on with Apex. So I guess they're necessary, but I don't think so. I honestly would have fully omitted those characters if I was writing this movie. I would have just given their B plot to the villain. Like, we could have just cut back from the villain and the protagonists for the film and we could have just done away with those characters. And these characters have the most contrived plot line of the entire movie. It makes no type of sense how they're able to accomplish about 95% of the things that they do. Wherever there could be interesting conflict, there just isn't, and they're able to do pretty much whatever they want to do. Like, they need to figure out what's going on at this underground facility. Oh, no problem. There's an elevator and no security guards. They need to see the evil tests that they're running with this robot Zilla. No problem. They'll just get unintentionally spat out into the testing facility and not get apprehended by security. What? There's a massive dangerous monster as part of this test and they are directly in its path? Don't worry about it. There's a little bunker in there that they can just hop into. Oh my god, they've finally been caught by the villain and there might be some real conflict? Nope, Robot Zilla just kills the bad guy. Oh, also, I'm editing right now and I cannot believe that I didn't mention the fact that they poured alcohol on the server, which disrupted the satellite from Mechagodzilla. Can we... Ridiculous. So these characters are just boring and unnecessary to me. The acting performances are also pretty bad. I don't even think they helped to drive the plot. They just existed to explain to us what was going on screen. It's like we're little babies and they go, here comes the spoon. Anyways, that was a tangent. I need to backtrack a little bit. So the Apex CEO hires this guy named like Nathan or something because he's like, we need to find this giant power source. I think it's in Hollow Earth. Then Nathan went to visit Kong Lady and he was like, Kong could definitely lead us down there. So then they get Kong onto a big old boat and what? Oh no, Godzilla comes swimming right along. This part of the movie was epic. I think it was one of the craziest parts of the movie when their whole boat just totally capsized and flipped over and Kong was all chained to the boat still. And then the boat was filling up with water and then they managed to get it flipped all the way back over. That was definitely a top 5 moment for me, that initial battle between Kong and Godzilla. It was what we signed up to see, you know, and I'm glad that the battles were kind of the forefront of this movie and I'm glad that they didn't only fight in the end of the movie. We actually actually got to see it in the first act. I heard that the first Godzilla King of Monsters movie, I heard that was disappointing for people because you couldn't actually see much of the fighting. You get plenty in this movie. Anyways, back to the plot. So you know how I said that conflict doesn't really exist in this movie? So when they're battling Godzilla and Kong gets free and everything, they're like, wait, just turn off the engines and he'll think that we'll surrender. And I'll be damned, he does. He just goes away. So then after that, to avoid Godzilla, they airlift Kong all the way to the Antarctic, where he runs directly into the Earth's butthole, as I understand it. Then they travel through a time warp in their magic ship, and then bam, they're in Hollow Earth. A concept that was also explored in the cinematic masterpiece Ice Age 3, Dawn of the Dinosaurs. Then we get some really just truly breathtaking visuals with Kong kind of exploring this land and then finding his new home. Or not his new home, now it's more of an abandoned home because all of his ancestors are gone now. But it's important because he does find the weapon that puts him in the same league as Godzilla. Which is crucial because then with his nuclear throat ray, Godzilla totally levels Kong's ancestral home. And then Kong is pissed and he jumps out, they start duking it out, and Kong totally takes round 2. I don't know about you guys, but I was totally rooting for Kong. You do too, right? Because Godzilla was totally painted as a villain in this movie. But that fight, ooh, goosebumps. That was dope, but then Godzilla took round 3, and I thought that maybe Kong was dying. But remember, we can't have conflict that's too difficult to deal with, so then they jumpstart his heart with their magic ship. Somehow. I don't know how, because their ship definitely wasn't designed to do that. But then after that, Kong was lit. He's like, I'm about to go destroy Robotzilla. The fight with the 3 of them was really surprising, actually, because I don't think that they featured Robotzilla in their ads, right? I don't think that it was in the trailers. Also, I know that they were calling him Mega Godzilla, but I think that's stupid. I'm not gonna call him that. So the movie totally exceeded my expectations with that final fight sequence, because we knew that Godzilla would fight Kong, but we didn't know that all 3 of them would be duking it out. And then anytime that the robot had one of them down, the other one would come up and like go, not today. And then Kong rips it to literal shreds. He beheads him, which was kind of foreshadowed earlier actually when they were in Hollow Earth and they came upon those other creatures. But they don't call him King Kong for no reason. I don't know why it was called Godzilla King of Monsters, because Kong is the king of the monsters. I'm Team Kong, and I honestly didn't even know that I cared about that before watching this movie. But I kind of need to backtrack again because I just got caught up talking about the finale of the movie. So the irrelevant characters, you remember them? Let's go back to them. At some point they come across how they are powering Robotzilla, which it's telepathically controlled by Ren Serizawa, the son of the late Ishiro Serizawa. And he does this through the neural networks from a severed head of Ghidorah. This is one of the most contrived plot points of the entire movie because, I know I'm not really meant to question the logic, but come on. I can't even begin to make sense of that because first of all, the thing is dead. Okay, it has like memory in its neurons, which is somehow able to connect to a human being, but then when the human being is killed, it starts to think for itself? What? Okay. Why they would do that instead of somehow making some other plot point about how they, I don't know, they like harnessed some of the magnetic energy from the Earth's core, and then they used that to power the robot. I don't know. It was really, really out there. And also when it started thinking for itself and then just wanted to destroy everything, I was like, what is the motivation? The only conclusion that I have come to is that we needed to be entertained. So logic be damned. Anyways, that actually pretty much covers all my thoughts on Godzilla vs. Kong. I don't have that many, honestly. I don't have a lot of thoughts in the movie because you're not really supposed to. You're just supposed to enjoy it, you know? I did kind of have fun pointing out all the stupid contrivances and the stupid characters though, so I still wanted to do that a little bit. But I gave the movie 4 stars on Letterboxd. Follow me on Letterboxd, by the way. Totally worth it. I honestly kind of want to go see it again if the tickets weren't so expensive, but it was worth it, 100%. I would do it again in a heartbeat. So definitely get out there. If you haven't seen it, but you didn't care about all the spoilers and you're still here, then definitely please go see it. All my explanations and stuff of what went on with the fights, I obviously can't really put that into words. It was amazing. Just please see it if you haven't. But anyways, I typically talk about horror on this channel if you're new, and if you're not new and you're one of my subs, I'm sorry, this was a pop cultural moment and I love the movie, so I had to make an emergency review on it. And I do talk about pop cultural stuff somewhat frequently. But if you'd like even more content me, I also have a Patreon if you'd like to support me there, and I have a vlog channel with a lot of miscellaneous content. I'm sure there's something over there you'd enjoy. You can also follow me on social media. My Instagram is @HauntedHippieHorror. That's where I post all my horror content, and then I do have a personal account if you want to follow that too. And then my Twitter, my Letterboxd, my TikTok, everything will be linked down below. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope I catch you in the next one. Bye!